Hello everyone, this is the Diktaat. The Diktaat is a 4-channel performance-focused trigger sequencer. With that I mean, in this case, there are 4 prominently placed buttons on this module that let you send triggers to anywhere in your Eurorack system. You can record your performance on the fly, and the Diktaat features several ways to generate, alter, and live play your trigger sequences. I'm quite excited about this module as I wanted a simple way to play my Eurorack drums live, while having the option to record and modify what I'm playing. Before we get into the practical patches, let's do a quick rundown of its features. So you can see it has 4 trigger outs. It also has clock in and out, as well as a reset in and out, and a break out, which I'll talk about a bit later. Besides overarching features, such as setting the length or the tempo, as well as loading and saving patterns, the Diktaat will either be in play mode or record mode, as indicated by the recording light, each with its own different set of functions. In record mode, we can clear, copy, fill or chain our patterns, whereas using the play mode, we can break, shred, add probability or crossfade between our patterns. So workflow-wise, the first thing you would normally do with a Diktaat is to fill out a pattern using the fill function. The fill function, of course, is one of the 4 functions in the recording mode. And as you can see here, once you enable the fill function, you can use the fader to select different types of fill patterns. Holding one of those buttons will write that pattern into memory for as long as the button is held, and double-clicking any of those instrument pads will fill out the whole pattern. Additionally, you can move the fader while you're holding the pad, which will also record your performance changes. As already mentioned, using the fader will give us different patterns, but if you move the fader past 50%, the selectable pattern changes and is only locked in once I select it for a specific track. As the random pattern suggestion keeps changing, I can override a specific pattern I've already selected with a new random pattern till I find a pattern that I like. And so this capability to generate a variety of patterns, combined with the capability to play patterns live and to delete parts of or whole tracks, gives you all the functionality to start making your own beat patterns. So when it comes to workflow, I normally start using the fill function first, so I have some guidance on the tempo of the track. And then after that, I normally use the fill function together with some fader movement to give me some more interesting pattern, like this. Once you created a pattern using the fill mode or playing it live, you can switch over to performance mode and add some probability to your patterns. Moving the fader left while in probability mode makes it so that there is a chance for each trigger hit that it doesn't trigger. Moving the fader to the right does the same, but additionally it will add a chance for additional triggers to occur at other timings. Once you've set up your trigger tracks, you can use the shred tool to redistribute the triggers of 2 tracks. The shred tool will take all the triggers of 2 tracks, sum them up together, and then it will redistribute them back to those 2 tracks, but according to a so-called dominance map, where you can select how many triggers should end up on one track or the other. And last but not least, there's the break tool. In break mode, you can use any of the 4 trigger buttons and it will trigger the first step of that specific quarter in your sequence over and over. You can use the fader to select how many steps are being triggered. And as the Diktaat keeps track where the sequence should be, once you let go of the button, it will put you right back at the right position in your sequence. So my testing, sadly the Diktaats didn't do well with shuffled clocks, but they do a good job when it comes to accelerating or decelerating clocks. So in this case here I'm using a clock that slows down in time over the course of the pattern, and I've used the fill feature to set up my various tracks. Only the snare I've played in live, because I felt I wanted a very organic feel of where they sit in the mix. The second Diktaat is actually triggering a morphogene, and here the trigger will change the position within the WAV file, giving me these like very abstract, almost dreamy soundscapes. And of course you can also use this unsteady clock idea only on your melodies and keep the rhythm very steady. Alright, let's talk pros and cons. I really enjoy the immediacy of the Diktaat. I think there's not that many modules out there where you just punch in your beat patterns and hear it played back live. And I specifically bought the Diktaat because it doesn't have a grid pattern where you can edit your drums after the fact, to get away from thinking about drums on a grid and thinking about it more in terms of the performance in the moment. And the fill, shred and probability functions really help to spice up the patterns that you've put in. Additionally, as far as I know, the software it runs on is open source, so you could make your own edits and basically customize the functions of the Diktaat to your own liking. For me, the biggest con of the Diktaat is that any sequence you play in will always be quantized, and there's no way to turn off the quantization. Additionally, at this point, the Diktaat doesn't have a function to humanize or shuffle your patterns a little bit, and the Diktaat doesn't work well with shuffled clock, for example from the Stolper beats, which makes it quite hard to break out of this strict quantization. But I hope this is something a future software update can fix. There's also no way to shift your patterns by one, so I had it a few times that my kick didn't end up on the first step, and then when I wanted to use the break function it sounded quite off. Also switching between the record and the play functions takes a bit of getting used to. That being said, I really think that the Diktaat is a really cool addition to any Eurorack system, especially if you're looking for a easy-to-use, non-grid based drum sequencer. As far as I can tell, this seems to be one of the only drum pad recorders on the market. But as alternatives, you might get a discontinued 4-bricks Rook on the second-hand market, or you can experiment with recording your own sequences into more fully fledged sequencers that have a recording function. Alright, that's all from me for today. Let me know what you think about this module in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next video.